Hi, Richard Tang, CEO of Zen Internet, here with David Butcher, Chief Executive of the Hallé Orchestra. David, hello.
It's lovely to see you.
And we're at your venue, your rehearsal venue now.
That's one of our homes behind us here in all its glory.
Yeah, and you have two homes.
We do. Well, we have a number of homes. We have two homes here. The wonderful Hallé St. Peter's and Oglesby Centre, which is where we rehearse and we put on concerts. As you can see, people have fine dining there as well. And it's really a catalyst for cultural change in this area. So our education and community programmes are all run from here. And there's a little place around the corner, St. Michael's, as well. And then a 20-minute walk from here, where I've just come from, is our main home where we perform concerts, the famous Bridgewater Hall. 2,500 seats, one of the finest concert halls in Europe, I would think, and built for the Hallé.
And tell me about the touring as well, because the Hallé is known as a Manchester orchestra, but on your website, you do a bit of touring as well. I mean, is that something that's still a thing?
It's very much so. I mean, we see ourselves... I mean, it's interesting, there's two sides to it. We see ourselves as incredibly rooted in Manchester and Greater Manchester. It's our home, we represent it, and we're flag wavers for that. And we're proud of it. And we have 80 musicians, 14 different nationalities who all live and work in Greater Manchester. But we're international ambassadors as well. The fame of the orchestra, if I may, is substantial. So we tour Europe, we're touring to Asia and Japan, and America we've not been to for a while, but we're looking at projects to go back there as well. So it's very much international, and also international in terms of the outlook of the orchestra artistically and from a business point of view as well.
Now, the Hallé is a charity, which is one of the reasons that Zen supports the Hallé. We're the technology sponsor for the Hallé. And as a charity, you have the world's biggest initiative in Hallé Connect, according to your website, in terms of charitable activities outside of what you're probably known for best from a lot of people, which is delivering fantastic music. Tell us a bit more about Hallé Connect.
I agree. It's kind of, one of our little kind of watch phrases, if you can put it like that, is that more than an orchestra. I mean, yes, we do about 120 concerts a year. We perform to well over 100,000 people, but a major part of our work is our education, community and outreach work. I think last year we had direct involvement with 44,000 children and 76,000 adults in terms of our programme. So it's huge reach. And I have to say, it's terribly important these days, without being too political, in terms of, music which has been taken away from many primary schools and secondary schools. 40% fewer people taking GCSE music and A-level music than there were in my day, which is now about 30 years ago. So it's really important that we're, without being too didactic, we're telling people how fantastic orchestras and music is. And so that education side is an incredibly important part of our work.
Yeah. And also the Hallé, of course, is a business. So as chief executive, you've got to think about making the numbers balance and dealing with all the other things that come with running a business. But share a little bit of an insight about fundraising, because of course there's ticket sales, but as a charity you've got sponsors, you've got donations, so you've got funding coming from a different number of pots. And reading your history, going back to the mid-1800s, there's been periods of financial difficulty for the orchestra. I think there was one in the 1990s most recently. So that's got to be something that is a hot topic for you and the.
In a way, I love my job because it's very artistic. It's working with all these glorious conductors and devising artistic projects, which I'm happy to talk more about. But also, it is a business. It has I think it's 11 million turnover at the moment, and it's that balance of we're very ambitious in terms of what we do. It costs a lot of money. Our salary bill for the year is £5 million for with the orchestra and the staff that we have. So it's kind of balancing that is you need, and obviously we treat it like any business very, very seriously. Lots of committees, lots of financial subgroups, and therefore in terms of fundraising, yes, the balance of public funding that we get. We're lucky to be funded by the government through the Arts Council and here by Manchester City Council and Greater Manchester. Relationships with corporates such as yourself with Zen, very important in terms of enabling us to devise and put on our ambitious projects. And ticket sales, as you say. And I'm glad to say that at the moment we're doing well, particularly post-COVID. Our ticket sales have, if you're comparing this year to last year, have gone up by 23%. That's another 18,000 people hearing the Hallé this year. And so in a way, that's our bread and butter. So it's kind of making sure all those elements of income are well balanced. And in a way, we're not too reliant on one of those above the other. That's one of my kind of great things. And anyone who's sensibly running a business has to think about getting that balance right. And the government have helped us recently, which sounds very boring, doesn't it? But there's a thing called orchestral. Absolutely, there's a thing called orchestral tax relief, where we get tax relief on preparation for concerts and touring and recordings, and the government have put that level up from 25 to 45%, and for the Hallé, that's worth nearly £1 million. So, that's been a great boost for the orchestral industry across the country, and we've been leading the fight for that challenge.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so, as I say, it's a wonderful balance. Running the business that is so artistically and community driven as well, and balancing the artistic with the business side as well.
Yeah, I mean, you said that ticket sales are the bread and butter. So how did it compare? Does most of the income come from there, or is it really balanced with the various?
It's pretty evenly balanced.
Okay.
In terms of how that works with our public funding.
Right.
But we're always looking for new ways of income generation. So we, for example, during lockdown, we started making films, and we're keeping that going now with kind of partnerships with, the BBC, BBC4, as well as other digital channels, and making sure, talking about the international side, that people are hearing the Hallé even on their digital screens, iPhones, or old-fashioned televisions across the world. And there can be new ways of generating income there, as well as, I have to say, new forms of concert presentation. Today, at 6 o'clock, we're doing a concert called a Rush Hour concert. It starts at 6, it finishes at 7. So that's lovely for people who perhaps don't want to be out too late, or maybe on their way home from work. That's something we discovered during lockdown, that people quite like the idea that it wasn't a 2-hour concert, that there wasn't an interval. And tonight's concert, I think we've got another 30 tickets left to sell.
Fantastic.
So that is an example of something successful that has generated more income than we thought would come in.
Yeah. Let's talk about the orchestra itself, because it seems to be a period of a lot of change. You've got a new lead of the orchestra in Roberto Ruisi, and Samark Elder, after 24 years, is taking more of an arm's length role, if that's the right way to describe it. What are your thoughts about the changes in the orchestra? It feels like you've got some very young talent coming through.
Yeah.
And what change, what Hallé fans can expect in terms of the what's going to change as a result of that? What's going to stay the same?
I think, I would say this, wouldn't I? But I think we're all, as the Hallé family, which we're often described, we're all really excited about the current moment. I mean, Mark Elder has been amazing over the past 24 years. He's really revived the Hallé. There was a wonderful quote in the Telegraph the other day saying he's revived it to the fame that the Hallé had in the 50s and 60s with Sir John Barbarolli, which is quite saying something. So we're at a great moment right now. Equally, Mark is kind of rising to kind of godlike status. He becomes our conductor emeritus. So he'll be doing 2 projects a year with us going forward. So we've a foot in with him and looking backwards, as it were, if I can put it like that, in terms of developing his role. But we have this fantastic, magical, wonderful conductor coming in, Kahchun Wong, who's from Singapore originally, is in demand all over the world, and he's 36 years old and bringing really interesting, fresh artistic ideas as well to the Hallé. So there's a lovely balance between him and Mark going forward. I think our programme is diversifying. It's incredible. If you look at this season, which we've just announced today, there's everything there from Bruckner and Beethoven to Top Gun to Nitin Sawhney to the very latest in new music. And we're thrilled also that Thomas Adès, arguably one of the greatest composers around today, who's British, is our artist in residence, and that's a continuing relationship. So there's a Britishness to what we're doing as well going forward, as well as with an international perspective. So the program is diversifying, and you mentioned, a number of new positions in the orchestra, and Roberto Ruisi, who is simply one of the finest musicians around, very frighteningly young, and he's now at the helm of the orchestra. And I gave a little talk to the orchestra yesterday, congratulating them, because in the past 2 months we've had over 10 5-star national reviews. This doesn't happen very often, so I was kind of congratulating them and telling them about some of the artistic program going forward. And it's just wonderful to see that enthusiasm within the orchestra in terms of what we're doing at the moment. So we're encouraging and hoping that lots of new audiences will be coming to see us this season.
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, that's a great question about the new programme just out today. I know that you have, because of your passion for music, you have a lot of input into the programme yourself. So can you give us a sneak preview of what's coming, what you're excited about?
I do. I mean, what I'd say is that I see myself and my team as very much about as curators, and we work really closely with people like Kahchun Wong, with Thomas Ades, and with a number of conductors and soloists who come to work with us. Oh dear, it's invidious. There's over 70 concerts, so it's invidious to pick out highlights. I mean, what's interesting with Kahchun coming in, some of his programs, in one sense, there's some of them that are quite traditional. So, for example, he's conducting Beethoven 9. He's conducting Bruckner Symphony No. 9. He opens with Mahler's Symphony No. 1. But what I know is, having talked to him about it, it's like these pieces will be newly minted when he produces them. But then alongside, he's doing new things. So we're kind of bringing, I think, for the first time to Manchester, the Tandan Violin Concerto. It's rarely heard. So there are kind of it's new music that he's bringing to us. And I think it's really important to us as an organisation that we are championing new music going forward. Equally, then, there are some ambitious projects that people may not associate orchestras with. For example, Gun Maverick, the film. We're doing that film. Everybody knows it. Tom Cruise, he's in our brochure. And it's a full orchestra on stage. And it's a brilliant way for new audiences who come along ostensibly to see the film, but then think, wow, I'm hearing a full, 90-piece orchestra in all its might and glory. So there's projects like that. There's a Chicago-based DJ artist called Honey Dijon who's coming in with us. I mentioned, I think earlier, Nitin Sawhney, who's a British musician and composer who works with flamenco guitarists and tabla players and sarod players and an orchestra, us. And so there are quite adventurous projects that we're taking on as well. And, American music, Philip Glass, we're featuring, doing a big festival of his music as well. So in my little press release statement, I said there's something for everyone. And I believe that there really is. And I think that's what's so exciting about orchestral music these days, that it isn't linear. It isn't mostly dead male composers. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly plural and wide-ranging. And I think at the Hallé we're embracing that. And as I say, the audiences are following us, which is great news.
Fantastic, and I really look forward to it. Last question. If you had to choose your very favourite piece played by the Hallé, what would it be?
That's a really hard question, and I'll get into big trouble.
Well, that's fine.
That's a really hard question. Actually, this morning I was listening to our latest release. Is this a politic question? In September, we will be releasing with Kahchun the complete Benjamin Britten ballet, Prince of the Pagodas. So I had my headphones on very early this morning, listening to the latest edit of that disc. It comes out in September. It's absolutely beautiful music. It's not performed that often, and we've recorded the whole ballet. And for our first concert in September, we're doing a suite from that ballet. So that's in my mind at the moment. So I think I'll mention Prince of the Pagodas by Benjamin Britten.
There you go. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you have found that interesting. And of course, if you want to find out more about the Hallé, get along to the website www.hallé.co.uk.